So looking at the design itself, you've got the bow, which I mentioned earlier on, and above that we've got a capstan. Now the capstan itself is multifunctional. Obviously it works for the single anchor, which was required because one of the features of the vessel was that apart from the anchor could be deployed to allow the vessel to be moored midstream whilst firefighting operations were underway. And the capstan itself could also be used for allowing the vessel to be moored up against buoys or barges or other objects in the river and to hold in that position while pumping was underway, because pumping operations were generally over many hours rather than just a few minutes, because to set up a pumping operation, which we'll describe in later sessions, we're looking at least half an hour, if not longer, for the hose to be deployed and also the water to be sent from the pumps, the fire pumps on board the vessel to the shore. So as we move back then, we've got the main capstan, and underneath there we have a section which we're moving back to. We will have where the hose is stored, and this is the forepeak as it's called. We have the red cover which flips up, and in this section here we have where the hose was stored. Now a vessel of this type would normally carry just over 1.5 miles of hose, a tremendous amount, but the vessel itself could use 8 outlets on the vessel, so it had 8 opportunities to provide water to the shore, and therefore the great amount of hose that was used could need to be deployed from this area. So what would happen was that the crew would come along, open up the hatch, and each of the lengths of hose would normally be in 50 to 100 foot lengths. They would be deployed up onto the deck, and then they would be then moved, connected together, ready to be taken either to the shore, either by a rowing boat or later on by a mechanised vessel with its own engine. But in the early days it was rowed ashore, or they would actually be pulled ashore after a rocket line had been sent from the river to the boat itself. So moving down the boat itself, we've got the hose and firefighting equipment will be stored in the forepeak. And as we move back down, we come to one of the key centres of the vessel itself, which is the wheelhouse. Now, in 1935, when the vessel was built, the wheelhouse that you see now was totally different. Basically, the first 3 sections, the bottom section, which takes you just above where the Massey Shore Life Ring is, would have been completely open. So the superstructure above that, with the windows and the roof, would not have been seen. We have some early pictures of that, which you can see on our website. And the reason for that was that in order for the fire boat to operate, the main monitor, which would normally, as we'll see in a moment, sit up behind the wheelhouse, had to be able to swing round 360 degrees so that the vessel itself could provide a full firefighting operations and cover. Also in the wheelhouse we have the main communication system to the engine room, which is in a separate part of the vessel, which we'll look at in a moment. And also it also works the controls for both engines and the fire pumps, and they're on telegraphs inside the wheelhouse. But that whole area was completely open and remained so throughout the trip to Dunkirk in 1940, and the wheelhouse appeared in around about 1947. So throughout that period, so if you're at the helm and working in the wheelhouse and it was pouring rain, or at Dunkirk you would be in with vessels and lots of aircraft noise, etc., you would be exposed to that. There wasn't anywhere to hide. But from 1947 until obviously now, we have the wheelhouse, which gives you some protection, and that's what it was put on for. But itself, the construction, as we move back, this would be the nerve centre where the skipper, the coxswain of the vessel, would be operating, normally with another fireman, firefighter, who would actually be assisting them to operate the vessel, providing the controls to the engine room, because the people in the engine room were completely blind to what was happening outside. They had to rely on the telegraph system, the bells that rung in the engine room, in order for them to get their information as to what was happening. And obviously when they went to use the fire pumps, the main engines would be put into neutral, and the fire pumps then would be operated from the main engines. They will have to be set up, and then a signal sent to the people in the wheelhouse to ensure that everything was ready before pumping operations could take place. So once again, the wheelhouse proved to be a very important feature. Inside the wheelhouse also we have our sets of flags, which are designed for signalling purposes, and also various other navigation equipment. So there's a compass, and we have obviously maps of the river, so we can do any route planning, etc.